Um, so should I start or something? You're waiting for, shall we wait for somebody else? I guess we can start. We had a very interesting discussion with Dawn, letters upon letters. And this is actually the major topic of integral yoga, how it differs from any other type of yoga. So that, but it is not applicable to all, and this is the other problem. Yes, many people who claim to have it, they truly speaking should go ordinary way. And they should start separating Purusha from Prakriti, finding, kind of pacifying the mind, making it silent and so on. Everything what Sri Aurobindo recommended, yes, for people who do not have that immediate presence of the mother. But for those to whom this force came, like Pavitra or few others, and who feel the presence, and who can invoke this force at will, even that presence, that grace, then of course it is very different. It is very difficult to go back to separation of Purusha from Prakriti. It's just not working that way. That's what he was asking Sri Aurobindo. How is that? When will I be free and see myself as third person? Shubin says it's not important anymore.
Can I ask a question about that, Vladimir?
Yeah.
I'll give the context. So, for you guys, I heard Amita Mira in an interview with Vladimir say, "Oh, that silent realization of silent Brahman is no longer relevant." And I think there may be a question about wording here in Sanskrit because the mother, I checked this, a very careful scholar, when you talk about Mother Sri Aurobindo, you always have to know what period. So I always go to 1972 to check, what's the latest change in the yoga, right? So right to the end, when you read Mother just talking to Saprem or advising disciples, she's always talking about stepping back. Now, it may be the words. So I would say, in opening to the presence, that presence can guide you spontaneously without sort of an old-fashioned yogic effort to recognize the stillness and silence everywhere. And that can guide you without necessarily any intention or yogic effort to step back. And I'm guessing that when Vladimir is talking about what Pavitra asked Sri Aurobindo, that's something very different. That's sort of the old-fashioned separation. Am I right? I'm not even sure how to ask this, Vladimir. Do you see the difference? When Mother talks about stepping back, she's not talking about, some mental effort of separating Prakriti and Purusha. She's really talking about, through grace and through aspiration, opening to the psychic being. Am I being too?
No, you are very precise with them. When Pavitra came to Sri Aurobindo, he asked him for mukti, and Sri Aurobindo says that in India there are people who can give you this mukti, but you have to learn their language to speak to them. My yoga, he says, went further. Mukti is already realized, and so I am now. The first step is mukti, and second step is to bring the presence into all adhar, into all the members of consciousness and being. So this part, he says, is much more difficult, because so to say, I understood there is a hierarchy. So the first is realization of silent Brahman, as it happened to Sri Aurobindo. And then this dynamic Brahman, which he experienced in Alipur jail. First he experienced this nirvanic consciousness, silent Brahman, and then he realized the dynamic. And so the dynamic comes later, so to say, on the ground of the silent Brahman. I'm just explaining to you how I think, just telling you how I kind of understand this thing. I may be wrong also. But it seems that everywhere I find the kind of confirmation with this view. Of course, interpreting it, not really directly speaking, but most probably directly also. So in my mind was that mukti must be there first. But then later, if you read the conversations with Pavitra, when he opened up to the presence of the mother and started to descend, he started to feel the descent deeper and deeper. And then he asks in the middle of the book, Sri Aurobindo, about this. That's, when will I get that mukti, when I will see myself nearly objectively as I see others, he says, as I see others. And Sri Aurobindo says, it will come, but it is not important anymore. So this is something which told me this, what I'm kind of trying to explain, that the silent Brahman is absolutely needed, of course. But if this happened with the grace of Guru or the Mother, that the transformation started to take place really, then the rest, like opening chakras, rising of Kundalini, Samadhi. He was asking also about Samadhi. He said Samadhi may occur here and there. It is a very powerful experience, and it may bring some element which may help the transformation. But these are becoming secondary. These, because the major thing is already there.
So before we hear your wonderful autobiography, I'll just add one more thing. I mean, you could say, this is sort of amusing, you could say, well, like my teacher who taught the divine name, well, if you just call on the divine and you don't need anything else. So if you just open to the force, well, we can get rid of the retreats and the grass and all the volumes of writings. And we can just, you'd open a talk and say, okay, everyone, open to the force. Thank you. The grass is now closed. Right? That's all we need to know. Right? But my sense is that, you know, I gave a talk last week for Naman on quiet mind and aspiration. And for me, it's always, first is the grace. Second is for first is opening to the presence. And then I would say in your mind, that's all you need to know. And everything else that we talk about, everything else we say, everything else you read is really something that's going to help foster the receptivity. And you don't need to remember, I always tell people, don't remember anything. I just wrote a last thing, I wrote a post saying, remember and offer to me is too much. That's 3 words. Just remember. And then she shows up and that's the rest. Anyway, that was my little struggle with my little mental struggle that Vladimir helped to clarify. Thank you.
Yeah, well, this is a fundamental issue of. So remember and offer what you say is totally true. So we have to come to the silent state in which we can perceive some deeper presence. Yes, of the. We are talking. I meant something more, which is already taking place in you. Physically tangible, yes. It's not something you feel better or you feel more spacey or luminous. It's rather more concrete and tangible, something which you cannot get rid of or you depend on, or I do not know, which embraces you and holds you nearly physically. You have no much chance to get out of that, you know. So to say, meditation goes on in your wakeful state and you can't really escape it. Yeah. So it's more powerful than most probably these are the stages and we are just talking the same language. So yes. So I think it is the same. You have to open to that and then slowly it has to grow. But once that major descent takes place and higher chakras open up and then it sinks down into your system, then you have not much of freedom to do whatever you want, and you are not seeking anymore any liberation. And I believe this was the state of the Vedic rishis, actually. They never speak about mukti or something because they were in that process of transformation. They were invoking forces to work directly on certain things, and so it could be that, at least.
You know, it reminds me we're going to be hosting Gerard Quirk on July 16th for New Perspectives, and he wants to speak to the what he's calling the double foundation of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother's Yoga. And he'll share a little bit about how he went through and down different paths in life. And at the end of the day, what he comes back to is a quote from Sri Aurobindo, and the quote is this. If you keep the wideness and calm and also the love for the mother in the heart, then all is safe, for it means the double foundation of the yoga, the descent to the higher consciousness with its peace, freedom, and serenity from above, and the openness of the psychic, which keeps all the effort or all the spontaneous movement turned towards a true goal. So I haven't heard his talk yet, but I think we've all been down different paths. And I think at the end of the day, as we look back, all these paths are worthwhile, but there is kind of a safe ground in which we're open to that higher force, and also keeping the mother, consciousness of the mother in the heart, this double movement, if you will. So
absolutely.
it just
it's very nice that you mentioned psychic presence in the heart, which we didn't even speak about in this discussion of the silencing and that descent from above. And we have to mention it, of course. What happened with Pavitra is quite interesting for those of you who read till the end. At the end, what started to happen with this descent from above is that his heart started to awaken. And it started to move. He said, this is totally different power, different force. It's not the same which is descending from above. It feels different. It is more powerful. And Mother speaks to him that time. You are welcome to come to my meditation. She had meditations with him. And I see that your psychic is ready to come forward. So you have to be ready for a kind of new awakening, but don't imagine anything, she says, because any imagination is totally wrong in comparison to what is to happen. So, and then the last 10 pages of his diary are torn out. We don't know what happened in that meditation. So he didn't allow this to be published. So I'm just assuming, so there are two different ways. One is awakening in the heart first, or the descent from above, and that force will awaken the heart. Yes. So that's what happened to Sri Aurobindo. His psychic yoga came later, with the mother arriving, actually. And before he had everything else but that. Yeah, that's interestingly enough. Yeah.
So Vladimir, are you going to tell us about yourself?
Right.
We're deferring, I guess. We would love to hear your autobiography.
Right. Well, it is somehow connected to my autobiography also, because this is the thing which I think is the meaning of this life or this incarnation. So I grew up in the communistic family. My father was communist. My mother was bureaucrat communist, Bureaucrat is something bigger than just communist. She was part of one regional, she was the head of the department in the Communist Party. Was very promoted. She had big salary, 180 rubles. It was a big salary. My father had 120, much less. She was the head of our family, so to say. And yes, and so we were always taught that there is no God, and that Lenin is nearly the God, so to say. Lenin, do you know Lenin? No, most probably nobody knows Lenin. But nevertheless, so my father was also the propagandist of atheism. He was going around telling that there is no God to people, going to churches and making this propaganda that, there is no divine God. There is no God on the cloud. So, and so I was also growing like this. And I remember my first experience with God was very interesting. When I was small, 6 years old, and I was brainwashed by my father, and I totally trusted him. He was a beautiful being, very sincere, very honest, very joyful. And I was with my family, with my kind of cousins in the village, and they were very religious, and I was kind of non-religious, And we were going into the mountains. We have beautiful Carpathian mountains. So I said, there is no God. Why do you? There is nothing of the kind to my brothers, my cousins. And they said, no, don't speak like this. What are you saying? You're saying something very... I say, I will prove to you. And I go to the top of the mountain with them and say, the God is full to the sky. The child, and running down happily from the hill down. And then my legs somehow, as if somebody stopped them, and I fell on the chest with all the power. It became totally dark, and I kind of lost the whole. And I hear only whisper to my ear from my brother, this is God tells you something. Who is the fool? So I knew who was the fool. From that time on, I had a doubt. Something is not working out with this propaganda. It's funny. I remember this moment. It's a psychic moment, Strangely. Really. That hit was necessary. It had to go into the physical, and darkness. And then later, of course, life went on, all that communistic state, socialism, blah, 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 blah. And then army. All my friends, we had compulsory army from 18 years old, Soviet Union, Russian army. You've seen what it is nowadays on TV. And all my friends were hiding because they were sending these invitations, or not invitations, but calling to join the army. You must come to the place where you will be kind of signed in. 2 years you have to serve compulsory. So all of my friends were hiding every time in this period when these invitations were sent. And I just didn't like the idea. And I went straight to that place, Voyenkomat, and said, I want to serve the army. I wasn't even 18 yet. I was 17, and 2 weeks were till I was 18. They said, okay. So they registered me. So come that when you are 18. So I went when I was 18. I didn't want to hide, to be afraid. It was kind of, I felt humiliated by that state, That humiliation was for me more unbearable than just to go and serve the army. Funny. And so I went to the army. Army was a disaster. It was so ugly and everything. It's like a jail without any freedom of your thought or anything. arguments, nothing works. And then after half a year, being prepared as a sergeant is something else. The war started with Afghanistan, so we were sent to Afghanistan. Afghanistan was a discovery because it was a totally different country, colors, people, it was like mountains, so beautiful, watermelons, everything. Dobe was of very high quality. All the soldiers were using that anasha, whatever it is, marijuana. But I tried and it never worked on me. I had only headache and nothing else. So I didn't like it, dropped it. Yes, it was a very bloody, very unpleasant time. And then I went home. And I remember when I came home after Afghanistan, I was then only I started to be afraid. And I noticed that I'm afraid to be without the machine gun or something, I was standing always with my back to the walls, wherever I was, some kind of automatic behavior in the body. And when I arrived home, I came home and I had to ring the bell to the door. I was standing in front of the door and thinking, this is weird that I'm coming back home. Maybe I should go back without really coming, not to enter. And I listen, I hear the voices there. My mother speaks, my sister. And maybe 5 minutes I had to get the courage to ring the bell. And then when they saw me, it was totally different. So they embraced me. And so I came from the war finally alive, because there were many, many people coming in this kind of tombs and so on. In our region also, my mother was so scared. And yes, and then I started to meet with my friends, and the surprise was that all my friends are drinking and going for parties, girlfriends, all that, youngsters, and I noticed that it is all making no sense. Somehow it is all fake. Their friendship is fake, their care, nobody cares. It's all only for the self indulgent kind of state, or for some kind of, I do not know what it was even, but I couldn't explain. I felt so dissatisfied with everyone, with everything, with all the relations, and even alcohol could not really stop that dissatisfaction. So in that state, I started to think, why should I really stay here and live? It makes no sense. There is no value in life. There is no value in anything. And then I met someone. It was a grace, my first wife. I met in the camp in the mountains. And strangely enough, she was collecting all that literature of occultism, of Buddhism, Zen Buddhism. So she was kind of aware of many traditions which nobody was aware in Soviet Union. It was a kind of, she had a secret society where she belonged, and they were exchanging these books on, Buddhism and so on, the yoga. And she told me, I remember this, in the night, in the evening, near the fireplace where we were sitting, that, there is God. There is. And it made totally sense. That one phrase, just, the heaven became earth and earth became heaven. Suddenly my mind became silent. For 2 weeks at least, my mind was totally silent. I started to see colors I started to feel wind on the skin, to see the beautiful flowers. It was amazing. It was such a silent period, the most beautiful. So silent Brahman exists. It's needed. And then, of course, we became friends. And then we kind of became closer friends. I started to come in. We were playing music. She was a beautiful violinist. She had a very old Amati violin. Viola, and I played guitar. I mean, she violin. We were composing music on Verlaine, on French poets, and so on, making songs and wine and this. It was like a fairy tale. She was also a poetess. So I opened up poetry, this Japanese, Chinese poems were the most interesting of the medieval period. Li Zhenjiao, these are my favorite. Li Bo. Until now, I remember those poems. They were like imprints on this consciousness which was thirsty for meaning in life. I'm maybe kind of telling extra things, but these are the fundamentals which changed me. And then slowly we started to look into the occultism, Christian mystics, Augustine, Meister Eckhart, and so on, Burma, Otto Weininger, all these Christian tradition, occultistic, these profound, then philosophers, one after the other, all of them. It was the whole period of studies. All the books were going in like I rewrote, because these books were given to us for some time and then they were kind of taken. You have to make your copy. Copy machines were not available. So you have to rewrite them. So I was rewriting them, I had my own manuscripts of the books. And then, of course, Buddhism came, and then Vivekananda was a big hit. I discovered Vivekananda. It was like a long period. And then the book of Satprem came, interestingly, but a very bad edition. Somebody translated it in a very bad language. But it was like, something is there. And then this book came, the major book of my life. It is the Conversations with Pavitra. Very good translation. And it was like a hit. I knew everything. It's real. It's not something, you want or wish. It was tangible. It started to be. So I had the same experiences which are described in this book. I was surprised how it can be. I am nobody. I'm like 23 years old. Why it is coming to me, 24 that time? It's not possible. It's not possible to have this tangible presence which you don't even produce. You don't even wish for. It's there in spite of you even calling it, Then later I noticed that something in you is always calling. Yes, only the surface does not know about it. It thinks you are not calling, but within you that flame is always burning. And then I understood in one vision, there were many other things which I'm not going into. But then I understood I need a tool. I had very intense period of meditation and yoga and pranayama. I started to do pranayama. I found the book which was kind of recommending how to do it, Ramacharaka yoga. And you know that Ramacharaka. So, and then I followed his pranayama to the letter. Like really how he described it was, I was exhausting myself. But I came to the level of pranayama 4 hours a day, yeah, so to say, 2 in the morning, 2 in the evening. It was a lot, but it gave me absolute peace and stability in the system. I saw that I cannot meditate a long time, so anytime I concentrate, my mind travels, it goes somewhere. So I understood I need pranayama, so I did this pranayama. I came to the first level of pranayama, 16 in, yeah, 16 in, 64 holding, 32 out, yeah, breathing in, out, 40 circles. So in the morning, 40 in the evening. It was the top 2 I came to. After that, you come like you are born again. You can fly. You just jump and you're light like a feather. And I noticed that my meditation became natural. I don't need even to do any effort. Yeah, I don't need even to close my eyes to meditate. Yeah, the peace was descending immediately. And then there was my attempt, because I still, in all that state, there was attempt to come to some kind of, as Sri Aurobindo described, I started to read that you have to concentrate over the head and in the heart. I was doing everything. I was hitting my Kundalini, according to Ramacharaka. I was doing concentrating in the heart. In the heart was more difficult. But over the head, I somehow could fix myself. And then I noticed that the heart and the over the head, 2 centers are connected. Every time there is a pressure from above, the heart is becoming more intense. The more intense the heart, the more pressure from above. I noticed that they are working together. Somehow on the surface there was already understanding. Yeah. And then something happened, some big thing, some kind of breaking through there was from the level of the heart or solar plexus solaris, there was like some movement started, like ignition, like the rocket with noise and light started slowly moving up, like with this breaking through to the head, and this through the head, like with sparks, with sparks and sound, unbelievable. So, and because the pressure was so strong from above that I had headaches, constantly headaches. But when this happened, this sat down like through. I was free from headaches. I was free from blockage. It came down. So I could feel that I'm in this embrace of the. It's a physical sensation. It's not even psychological, It's interesting. And from that time on, yoga started to be. Then I saw that I need Sanskrit. I really need Sanskrit. I saw the vision. So I went to the University of St. Petersburg, which was the only university they taught Sanskrit. I sent my papers and to join the university. And there, when I came, they didn't have Sanskrit department. That year, they have every 5th year. They had philology of Marathi. I said, no, Marathi, I will not study. Give me back my papers. But there was in that commission, in that group, there was one girl from Sanskrit department. And she said, but you will have Sanskrit twice a week. Anyhow, everyone who studies the Indian language will have Sanskrit twice a week. I said, twice a week? Okay, I leave the papers. So she saved me. Actually, I was ready to go. And then what happened, the Marathi teacher, who was very old lady, Tatiana Yevgenyevna, still remember her. She was smoking all the time and coughing like anything. She was the only specialist of Marathi in Soviet Union. She, in 3 months, she died. I'm so sorry to say that. Yes, she was ready to go, really. Looking at her, everybody was surprised that she was still there. And when she left her body, so there was nobody to follow the Marathi. So they said, you choose the profession which you want. Yeah? I said, Sanskrit. So they let me be in Sanskrit. Yeah. You see, the divine knows how to do things. Yeah? And then it was a golden time in my life. Sanskrit was a discovery. It all fit into these spiritual experiences. Everything, words, meanings. I discovered the deeper meanings of each simple word because I kind of understood what it means, how it came to this meaning, to mean that meaning of that particular root and so on. And then I discovered that Sri Aurobindo did all the work in this field. And I was totally in the framework of his thinking. And I knew that I am led by some higher force who puts into me all this kind of ideas. It's like Gebser, who realized that he was influenced by Sri Aurobindo writing his book. Then I wrote to the ashram that I would like to come to ashram, live there. And then they sent my photo because I knew that I have to send the photo. Guru has to see my photo whether I'm worthy of coming to this. But they answered that they don't have any settled method of yoga, so I may come and stay in their guest house and see for myself and so on. Anyhow, and then we were sent to India for, what do you call it? Exchange cultural program we had between India and Soviet Union. It was 91. It was still the Soviet Union. So I came to Pune University. I chose Pune, and because there are 4 great institutions there of Sanskrit. Yes, there is Bhandarkar, there is Deccan College, there is Pune University, and Samshodhala Mandala Vidyapith. So these 4 great institutions. Yeah? So I went there and I studied 1 year, Panini Ashtadhyayi. That was my major thing, major work, which I translated first 2 books into Russian. And then I had to be sent back because we were given passports of diplomats. At that time, nobody could travel abroad from Soviet Union, only diplomats. So diplomatic passport for 1 year only for that purpose. Yeah. So I had to go back, and also because of passport, and Soviet Union collapsed in the meanwhile. It was weird. So in 91, in December, Soviet Union collapsed, and they called us to Russian embassy and said, there is no more Soviet Union. We stop paying you the stipendium. Stipendium was $180, was a lot of money that time in India, 91. But because I didn't spend anything, so I saved 3 stipendiums. I said, no, I stay. They said, you can stay without money or go back. So I chose to stay, and it was the right decision. I met people from Pondicherry, from ashram, there in Pune. So I traveled to change passport and already had my ticket back to India, to Pondicherry. And that first time I arrived in Pondicherry in 92, in the evening, I remember, September evening 92, or August. In the night, 10 o'clock in the night, and I felt I arrived home. I could feel the atmosphere, Pondicherry in the evening. I could feel like lying down on asphalt and sleep there. It was like absolute realization of just being in Pondicherry. And then, of course, samadhi, and so on and so forth. And so I started to be active in Auroville. I had many groups of Sanskrit, first Russians, then everyone. I had I taught Sanskrit in 4 schools of Auroville. So life took place then. And now I'm here. Yeah, this is my story. Longish, but with details usually never mentioned.
Thank you so much, Vladimir. That was beautiful. I love the way that your story, it's so symbolic for the modern age that you span the atheistic Soviet Union, and there you were, guided by Sri Aurobindo, and then coming to India and the ashram, and then South Carolina. And it's such a beautiful flow. Yeah. Very magical.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much. That was beautiful. It brought out very clearly how you prepared yourself for the path, from the time you were introduced to it by your first wife in that camp. It was all a field of preparation that you really embarked on. I think it seems like that to me. You really worked very hard, including that Kundalini experience of the awakening of that power. It was beautiful. Thank you for sharing your experiences.
Yeah, thank you for listening, actually. And of course, it is that what I remember, really. The rest, of course, there are many events which are not worth mentioning. Kind of life took place, this, that, arrangement, working, this, marriages, children. I don't even mention them, you see, because they're kind of at the background. They're kind of supporting the rest, which is, as Sri Aurobindo somewhere said, when I hear this from him, it makes totally sense to me. He says, my life was never on the surface. So how can you really describe it? By observing it from outside. If you describe my life from outside, it would be a totally different story. Nobody saw this, what was happening really in me. And this is what I remember. I think we all have the same stories, inner and outer stories. And once in a while they overlap. Great. So today we wanted also to do something with sound, I guess. I wanted to finish this story with sound. I prepared, I kind of have few videos. If you want, we can share and discuss them, if you like. Yeah?
Sure. Vladimir, I'm just going to make you
host,
because I will have to leave a little after 11. We're doing a little Father's Day thing here up in Charlotte, so I just made you
I'm
host.
a host, yeah. All right, let me project a few movies. Today I wanted us to see how, this beautiful film of Japanese, how water reacts to the different vibrations and sounds. But how water reacts to different, when it is flowing, I never saw, and I found the video and I want to show you. You will be surprised what it does. It's a very simple thing. Let me share. 2 minutes, and then we can discuss. It's really amazing. Do you see it? So you understood, yes? They put the dynamic, which will generate a particular frequency, and the tube goes through this dynamic and water flows out. Yeah. Now let us see. 24 hertz. He will give the vibration through. This is how water reacts in the flow. 25 hertz. The spiral moves, yeah? And 23 hertz reversal movement. Okay. Amazing. Magic. What can be more magical than this? And this is only 23, 24, 25 hertz. And the water is reacting so much. What can happen to now we understand what Japanese was doing with frozen water. Yes, a little harmony, vibration, and it reacts. But this can be regulated. You can really make a difference here if you start regulating the vibration. The other thing I wanted to, there is the whole film on this, which is quite 10 minutes, but most probably it's I will send you the link to this film so you will watch. But another thing I wanted us to look into is music and animals, how animals react to the sound and music. This is something amazing. Let me open the... So different animals react to different instruments. It's amazing. Yeah. For example, geese would react to harmonica more because they have some similar. Yeah? And the cows would love these different. You will hear and see. Yeah. And even the fox, wild fox, reacts to banjo. This is amazing. Banjo is somehow more kind of pleasing the ear of the fox. Okay, I will start with banjo. Wait a minute. Fox is coming to listen to this music from the forest. So it's something like this. When I found this, I understood something. There's really a delight which they are attracted to. They cannot resist that delight. It's like food, for consciousness or something.
Have you anyone seen there's a number of wonderful videos with cockatoos dancing to music? You should look at it. Anything with a cockatoo. They play Elvis.
Oh, yeah, right. I saw, yes.
The music stops, he stops, it starts, he goes, wonderful.
Dancing and sometimes even singing. And now I will show you something about these geese. It's really amazing. Let me start. Who could have thought that geese react to this? This is,
That's funny. I know, Vera, you work a lot with animals as a veterinarian. I wonder what, have you had any experiences with the different animals and sound that you've noticed?
It's different at work in the clinic because it's, busy and sick animals and all that. But my own dog, my Sasha, I would sit and meditate. She would sit with me when I would meditate. When I was playing mother's music, she would just sit quietly. Yeah. So she was very special. My cat doesn't care so much. He does his own thing, but my dog was definitely very in tune. Yeah, very in tune. But at work, I don't have the opportunity yet. Maybe someday in the future. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But
maybe
it's
you should
beautiful.
introduce music to kind of pacify and calm the animals.
Yes,
Maybe-
yes,
yeah.
yeah,
Mm,
yeah. I am hoping to do that.
mm,
Mother's sending me a new opportunity my way where I'm hopefully opening a place of my own.
mm.
So it's going to be different. Yeah,
Wow.
I'm working. I'm
Nice.
working on it. She just dropped it in my lap 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
Wonderful. Great.
Mm. And maybe one short last, 1 minute, less than a minute, which I like. Maybe I will not show all, but one. And that is All We Need Is Love, it's called. That is what love is about. All right, wait a minute. Let me project. Did you notice how gently she put her horn not to touch her leg? So carefully, so consciously knowing it.
There's a wonderful video. There's a man who lives in Thailand, and he plays piano. Very good pianist. He brought his piano out to a field, and these little elephants come up, and they come right to the
Wow.
piano. And you may have seen that, yeah?
No.
Very beautiful.
Wow.
Very easy to find.
I have more, yes, with cows running or sheep, and they're running to harmonica or to the tuba. They love tuba, the cows, the brass section. They from far away they run. They stop eating, they just come and stand and listen. There's some magic in music, yeah, which attracts our consciousness, the beauty, the sound, the co-vibration, so to say, being in this bliss together. Yeah.
Beautiful. That is beautiful.
Great. That's what's, yeah, for today. I guess we can stop here. Yeah, it's nearly the time.
Thank you.
Our
Thank
small
you.
group.
Yeah.
Yes,
Thank you.
very nice.
Thank you so much. That was
Yeah,
beautiful.
thank you. See you. Bye.